go to our panel right now. Joining me right now is Pastor Shannon Wright, third vice chair of the Maryland Republican Party. Also, Derek McCoy, executive vice president of the Center for Urban Renewal and Education. And it was very interesting. I was going back and forth with this lawyer on Twitter, and who felt that she said, well, you know, why are you defending Bill Cosby's legacy? I would say, well, first of all, I'm not defending his legacy. I said, we know how to have multiple conversations at one time.
Absolutely.
I said, you can't just, she said, well, you know, if you can't focus on the victims don't say anything at all. I said, well, you're not doing what I do. I said, the reality is, when it comes to this case, there are multifaceted pieces here, and that is obviously the conviction, the sentencing, how he's doing, what the appeal is going to be. Also, Camille Cosby, of course, her being aggressive, going after the judge, and also how folks view his legacy. All of those things are worthy of black folks talking about, and also folks who say that look at the sentence that he got, but then you can show various white folks who committed sexual assault who got probation. All of those things can be talked about at the same time.
They should be. We're not a one issue at a time kind of society. When you become grown folk, you're expected to multitask. So when you look at the victim, you look at the perpetrator, you look at their family, you look at the involved families, because regardless to how things happen, everybody has reasons, issues, feelings, and emotions, and I don't think any of them should be overlooked. Okay, Bill Cosby did some things that he shouldn't have done. Granted, nobody's arguing that, but he did a lot of good too. Over the years, he did a lot of good, and I don't think that we should forget that. The Bible says, hate the sin, love the sinner. So we don't throw him out with the bathwater. You still take care of the victims, you still make sure his wife is okay, but all involved are still human.
I agree too. I mean, I think you definitely have to be able to talk about multiple issues at one time. We're not monolithic as a society, and I think there's no question Bill Cosby was an icon in our time frame. I mean, you grow up looking at him, listening to him, and everything else he's done. His wrongs, whether they're right, wrong, and I know they were defending him vehemently, but we should be looking at a total issues and several different issues at one time.
And I think that, look, I mean, what you have here is you have 60 plus women who made allegations against Donald Trump.
Right.
Excuse me, well, first of all, there are about 22 who made allegations against Donald Trump, 60 plus who made allegations against Bill Cosby, but he was convicted of the Andrea Constand case,
right.
And that was the only one that has actually gone to trial.
Right.
Some of those allegations go back as far as 50 plus years. Some of them are a lot more recent. And what you have here is what you have, and I do believe that as a result of this case, as a result of other cases, that you are seeing women who are choosing not to wait 10, 20, 30, 40 years to actually share these details. We see with Harvey Weinstein, folks who actually reported that he raped them as recent as 2, 3, 4 years ago, and that's one of the reasons why he was arrested and charged and is facing an indictment.
Mm-hmm. There are different stories and different doctors and folks that have been coming out of the woodwork saying, well, sometimes you wait a long time because it's traumatic. Sometimes you wait a long time because you actually forget and block out certain things. If issues of sexual abuse are not easy issues. They're not easy for folks to talk about and explain. They're not easy for the victims. They're not easy for anybody. So if something happens, I think that you kind of owe it to the one behind you or next to you to say something when it happens so that you can stop it from happening to somebody else. Or so if it does happen to somebody else, you can be a role model or example for them of how to get through it. But if you keep it in the closet, it just festers. It just
and it also was interesting, and folks are saying, people are looking at people of color, African Americans in particular, saying, well, why are you having this conversation? We can talk about the Catholic Church and how you have this ambivalence to deal with this. We just saw in Pennsylvania where they came forward and showed decades of massive cover-up in churches where bishops moved folks and they covered these things up, covered the crimes up. And you had one particular church where one priest, multiple cases where they said he sexually assaulted someone, where you still have people who say, no, he was a great priest. And I just simply can't believe those things. And so it is human nature to believe somebody who they might respect, they might revere, And we have to understand that that's also part of the difficulty with people making the complaint, because they're saying, wait a minute, they're going to believe the bigger person, the known person, than just little old me.
Well, absolutely true. At the same time, Roland, what you're finding too in today's society is if one person says it, well, we question it. Two people say it, well, I think that's a solidified accusation. Three people, we automatically say, well, they absolutely did it. And so we begin to dismiss it and begin to believe the people who are actually accusing the person.
Except if it's Brett Kavanaugh. That's not always,
Now, see, I was
it's not
about to
always,
go there.
not always the case.
I was about to
Go ahead,
go
final
there.
comment before I go to the next story.
So, you know, there have been a lot of cases that have been talking about the comparison between Bill Cosby and Brett Kavanaugh. They're very different circumstances. Listen, if somebody did it, then they need to pay for it. They need to be accountable for it. But I'd like you to find me a room of 6 people on Capitol Hill that can say they are without sin to cast that stone. That's part of the problem. He's not, whether he did it or not, he's not the only one. There's a whole long list. How much taxpayers' money has been going to keep it all quiet?
Right.
Find me 6 that can't say they've been accused, that aren't guilty of it, and then let's talk about that.
All right.